this is Lady Boulay, and welcome back to Black American Lineage. Thank you for taking this journey through our past and our present. And today we're talking about Dr. Ezra Totten. On this channel, we don't really talk about current events, well, not very often anyway. We talk about contributions that Black people have made in the past and in the present. And Dr. Ezra Cotton is a really interesting person because he wanted to make life easier for Black students, STEM students, students who were interested in physical science, mainly chemistry, because he was a chemistry professor. He was born in North Carolina, but he went to undergraduate school at Knoxville College, which is a private Black college in Knoxville, Tennessee. But when he got ready to go to graduate school to get his master's, it was during Jim Crow segregation. So Tennessee law prohibited him from going to the University of Tennessee, even though he filed a lawsuit with the NAACP and Thurgood Marshall, but he lost. So he went to the University of Iowa for his master's degree. So he got a master's degree from the University of Iowa and then went on and got a PhD from the University of Wisconsin. And I find his story kind of compelling because when I was a student, one of my favorite professors at Alabama State had gone to, I think it was the University of Iowa or Iowa State, but he had to go out of the state of Alabama to pursue higher education because the University of Alabama, Auburn University, all of the Alabama institutions that would have granted master's degrees or PhD degrees were segregated because it was still under Jim Crow. And this story was told over and over again in the universities and in the sorority that Alabama had to pay for them to go to the University of Iowa, the University of Chicago, or the University of Wisconsin, or the University of Illinois, or just any institution of higher learning in a state that did not discriminate against Black people. So Alabama had to pay for them to go to graduate school. So they went to those out of state universities free of charge because Alabama had to pay for them to go because they couldn't go to Alabama schools of higher learning. So that was kind of an interesting story. And when white people hear about that, they're appalled, not because the schools were discriminating against them, but because Alabama had to pay because they were citizens of Alabama. And Alabama was discriminating against them. And I'm sure it's true for other southern states too. But anyway, today we're talking about Dr. Ezra Totten. Listen to this video.
So a civil rights pioneer had one dying wish: to create a scholarship for Black students in STEM at the University of Iowa. And the state just recently tried to take that money and give it to everybody. And the Supreme Court of Iowa just said, not so fast. Here's what just happened yesterday, Friday, June 5th. The man in the center of this picture is Dr. Ezra Totten, chemist and civil rights pioneer. And back in 1939, Dr. Ezra Totten was one of 6 Black students who sued to enter a whites-only grad program, part of the legal fight that led to Brown versus the Board of Education. And in 1997, he left a scholarship for Black students at the University of Iowa who were studying the physical sciences, especially chemistry. Now, less than 3% of the student body at the University of Iowa is Black, but the college wanted to redirect that funding to all students, first-gen students. Let's spread the wealth to everyone. And I told y'all back in 2023, when the Supreme Court gutted and got rid of affirmative action, that scholarships would be next. Now look. Yesterday, Friday, June 5th, the Iowa Supreme Court ruled that the University of Iowa may not repurpose a private scholarship that was supposed to specifically go to Black students studying and majoring in the physical sciences, especially chemistry, because this would conflict with the wishes of the donor who is now deceased, which he expressed in his will. In 1997, chemistry professor and civil rights pioneer Ezra Totten. 2 key points were made. Number 1, The scholarship is distributed from private funding, not government funding, and therefore the law protects the wishes of the donor. Number 2, it is for the court, not the university, to determine how best to modify the gift so that Dr. Totten's wishes could be honored as best as possible. Dr. Totten spent his life fighting for justice and opening doors, and today, those doors remain open. Stay tuned for more updates.
Dr. Totten passed away in 1996, but he didn't just leave behind a resume, he left behind a mission. He donated 40% of his estate, almost half of everything he owned, to create scholarships for Black students in the physical sciences, especially chemistry. Why? Because he knew the system wasn't built for us, and he wanted to change that. One of those gifts became the Ezra Totten Scholarship at the University of Iowa, a scholarship specifically for Black students majoring in the physical sciences. And we know that he had a preference for chemistry. That was his wish, that was his legacy, and that was his money. Fast forward to today, after the Supreme Court's affirmative action ruling, the University of Iowa tried to change his scholarship, turning it into a first generation student award. In other words, they were going to erase the Black specificity, erase the intent, and erase the man's legacy. But civil rights groups, including the ACLU and the NAACP, stepped in and said, absolutely not, because honoring a donor's intent isn't optional, and honoring a Black man's legacy shouldn't be negotiable. So, this is one time that the NAACP stepped in and did something positive for Black people. Because the University of Iowa, now you have to think about that. They were going to take this Black man's money and just make it available to everybody when he had specified that he wanted Black students who were majoring in the physical sciences, especially chemistry, to have that money. And the reason this matters is because Dr. Totten represents something bigger, a generation of Black scholars who fought their way into spaces that were never meant for them and then turned around and opened the door wider for the next generation. Now, everybody didn't do that. We're looking at you, Clarence Thomas. When institutions try to rewrite that, which is what Dr. Totten meant for his money to go to, that's not policy, that's erasure. And we're not letting that happen. Now, they were trying to erase his legacy, take his money, and do with it as they wished. But the Iowa Supreme Court told them, you can't do that because that is not public money. That was private money, and it needs to be used for what he wanted it for, or you give it back to his family. And that was the way they should have ruled. And as she stated in the video, only 3% of Iowa's student body in science, in the physical sciences, is Black. So I could see them, the officials at the University of Iowa saying, well, we've never done anything on race because Dr. Totten went to the University of Iowa when he couldn't go to Tennessee or North Carolina, his home state. Yet and still, he designated that money for Black students, and that's who it should go for. So when we hear the name Dr. Ezra Totten, we can understand that he wasn't just a chemist, he was a blueprint. He was a reminder that Black excellence has always existed, even when the world pretended not to see it. And his legacy deserves to be honored exactly as he intended. And I second that. And I want to correct myself. My professor, Dr. Hardy, went to Iowa State and he went to the University of Wisconsin for his PhD. But again, Black excellence has always existed, even when the world pretended not to see it. Dr. Hardy didn't leave a legacy of money, of scholarships, but his name is on a building at Alabama State University, and he really shaped our minds into thinking of ourselves as world citizens without any kind of inferiority that the world wanted us to think of ourselves. He worked on us for at least 2.5 years. He worked on me and my classmates, telling us to have to overcome any feeling of inferiority in order to operate in this world, because that is, and he nailed it. He said that is brainwashing, that is indoctrination, and it is a lie. You are not inferior. So, Dr. Hardy, I put you up there with Dr. Totten because you did us a solid. Anyway, y'all, they cannot erase us. So y'all need to get that out of your minds. They cannot erase us, even though they will try. Okay, y'all, let me know what you think about the video and have a good day.